that we're here, and the board has just come from a work session, and all members are present. So I would entertain a motion to, before I do that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna move this around and do our oath of office for our 2 recently elected board members, so therefore they are then legal to vote on approving the agenda, so we can do this in proper order. Minor detail, so.
Okay, so I am going to ask Nancy and Mark to join me up front here, and I will administer the oath of office.
Oh, I need.
Okay, I'm going to ask you both to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Hey, do hereby solemnly swear or that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Washington, and will faithfully discharge the duties of Director of Lake Washington School District Number 414 in the County of King, State of Washington, according to the best of my ability.
And welcome back to Nancy, and welcome to Mark, who is our brand new board member. Now I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, our agenda is approved. You realize you sat in the seat where Doug was, and Doug either was a motion or a second or off and on with Nancy. So
It's a very heavy seat.
Mark, if it's not for us, these things get really bogged down.
that's true. So, okay. We have a host school this evening.
We are very pleased that Twain Elementary School is our host school this evening, so I'd like to invite Principal Craig Mott up to the podium, and Craig's here to tell us a little bit about Twain.
All right. Well, thank you and good evening to the board. My name is Craig Mott. I'd like to start by thanking a few members of our PTSA for providing some treats for tonight, as well as decorating the boardroom. Pardon me. We've been fortunate that I think we've had the boardroom decorated the longest out of any school. So I appreciate that, although my stress level, because we got postponed to January, has raised 200%, so I'm not sure what's the trade-off at this point. My goal tonight is to highlight the work that we're doing at Mark Twain and the partnerships that we have formed to ensure that every student is future ready. Our mission, I'm going to move this here. Our mission is to ensure that everyone in the school community is committed to continuous improvement and student success. We have some core beliefs which help steer our work, and I want to highlight 3 of them as it relates to tonight's presentation. The first is we believe all decisions should be made in the best interest of learners. We believe learners should have the knowledge, skills, attitudes to be successful now and the future. And we believe school, family, and community work together to guarantee each child the opportunity and support they need to be successful. Before I get too far into our work, it's important to understand the dynamics of our school. Our families in the Mark Twain community are educated and passionate about not only Mark Twain, but our surrounding community. The positive experiences they have had and word of mouth have resulted in new families moving into the area, and when asked what brought you to our community, often they tell us it's because of the school. As a result, we continue to grow. We have seen a large growth pattern the last couple years that does not appear to be going away. Since we returned from the holiday break less than a week ago, we've enrolled 7 new students and had multiple families inquire about enrolling this week. For comparison's sake, the last year that Mark Twain was a K-6 school, they were 642, and we are quickly approaching 630 K-5. Also, on the increase is our ELL population. You can see 4 years ago we were approximately 9%, and we've quickly grown to 16. The makeup of our school is changing, and we are becoming a more diverse population, and we represent over 33 different home languages spoken. Also on the increase is our free and reduced population by a lot. And this is just the families that are actually filling out the application and not those that are choosing not to. We are fortunate that we have a breakfast program, and we're serving over 200 breakfasts on average a week. Our IEP numbers have remained consistent the last 4 years. However, the level of service has not. We are providing much higher and more complex IEP goals, as well as meeting educational challenges, and you can see our 504s have increased threefold. New this year, to help meet some of our needs, is we are fortunate to have a brand new learning center at Mark Twain for students who need more support than the traditional resource model, and it's really improved our culture, but it's also allowed those students to attend their natural feeder patterns, where in the past they haven't. They've had to attend another school in our learning community or outside of the learning community. As we continue to change, our staff continues to address the challenges by taking a team approach and creating a more supportive educational plan possible, and it begins with our SIP or our BLT team. Our process begins with determining what new and continuous learning we as a staff need to do and build a plan. This year we've had a lot of new learning. With the new ELA curriculum, the new PGE system, Common Core, as well as the implementation and refinement of assessments. Secondly, we are spending considerable more time looking at the data from assessments. The Twain staff has done a remarkable job looking at the different forms of data, whether it is district, state, or grade level assessments, and drilling down to the strand as well as the student level to help inform instruction. Their comfort level with data dashboard and query continues to grow and provides a clear picture of how our students are doing. The third piece of it is the foundation of our work, which revolves around the 4 critical questions. And it's understanding and the delivery of the Common Core standards. It's looking at assessments that are available, but more specifically, what are our results telling us? The third piece of it is having those tough questions when students aren't learning the material and trying to develop supports or additional interventions. And then that last piece is enrichment, differentiation, and challenge when students already know it. Our fourth piece in our continuous improvement process plan evolves around the professional learning opportunities that we create, but also encourage our staff to take. We've been fortunate to have staff members who actively seek out positions here at the district, both on curricular adoptions, but also as teacher leaders. The goal for them, and it continues to be a priority to them, is to be on the front end of the learning and share that information with the rest of the staff so that we as a core group are moving our students forward. In addition to these 4 areas, our continuous improvement plan involves engagement in regular purposeful collaboration. Our 4 main collaborative teams include The support teams, which have been an important aspect of the collaboration within the district since we adopted the PGE system. However, with our new evaluation system and the ability for grade levels to nest their student growth goals, the role of support teams and conversations have become more focused and purposeful on student growth. Grade level teams have been a part of the Twain culture for some time, even before I arrived. However, this year we've changed their role a little bit. The focus is on the student and identifying their needs, whether it is in intervention or enrichment, and having honest conversations about assessment and what is the data telling us. The newest team for us this year is vertical teams. The focus is on vertical articulation, differentiation, assessment and data, strategies being utilized with struggling and successful students across grades. Our instructional practice and our conversations are looking at understanding where students are by approaching instruction with the end in mind. The last common collaborative team that we utilize at Twain, but also within our learning community, is the learning community opportunities. Our staff members have been dialoguing, particularly the last couple years, more than they've ever done before with colleagues to help improve their instructional practice. And as a learning community, principals and staffs have made a conscious effort to create those opportunities to foster ongoing learning. As a result of our steps, our results of our work have shown some positive progress and positive results for students on major assessments. As you can see, we're either at or above district averages with the exception of grade 3, which dropped last year, and we believe with some of the interventions that we're putting in place, those students will achieve proficiency on future assessments. At the primary grades, our DIBEL scores continue to reflect over 80% of our students meeting benchmark by the end of the year. We are seeing positive results, but it has not been done in isolation without support. We are creating partnerships with families in the community to ensure each student has the opportunity and support they need to be successful. Our partnerships include local and county organizations such as the Assistance League of the East Side, Sound Mental Health, Youth East Side Services, Children's Crisis Outreach Response System, Pantry Packs, and we have a wealth of former students at our secondary schools that come down and mentor and provide support to our current students. We are intentionally assigning IA support to each grade level with the purpose of supporting classroom teachers, providing enrichment and interventions. Through the support of our PTSA, we have a number of academic support stipends providing both before and after school tutoring, as well as academics clubs providing opportunity for kids to extend and apply their interest in content area. We currently have a primary and an intermediate math club which connects nicely with our math night that is sponsored by our PTSA. We have also applied and received grants from the Lake Washington Schools Foundation, which has allowed us the opportunity to provide IXL to our students to use at home to help reinforce math foundational skills. In terms of our PTSA, I can't say enough, and the support they provide our staff and students and our community as a whole is extremely generous. As you can see, this is just a short list of the offerings that they provide our school. Everything from our school play, cultural enrichment grants, our science fair. We recently had our talent show, and as I said, we will have our school play starting soon. The support of our PTSA provides us impacts more than just our staff and students, but our community, and it shows by the number of people who attend PTSA functions. They are always looking for ways to partner with us, which is appreciated immensely, and they provide our students with additional opportunities. I'd like to end tonight highlighting the effort we are making with our highlight the effort we're making to connect with our community, to support our students. These are just a few of the examples that our staff have led or encouraged our kids to be a part of. But the three I want to talk about is one that's important to us because of our diversity, and that's the International Night we have. It's a huge event in Mark Twain. It's celebrating the cultures that we represent. There's a food, dance, crafts, and it allows families an opportunity to showcase and teach our students in a fun family environment. More than half of our community attends our International Night. Now that's saying a lot when you have 630 kids, and you, on average, we have two parents per family or 4 kids per family. There's a lot of people that show up to our events. And last year, in the last 2 years, we've had over 25 countries represented in our International Night. A new program that we started this year is called PopCats. PopCats stands for Papas on the Playground. CAT stands for Celebrating, Advocating, Team Building, and Sportsmanship. It's a takeoff of the Watchdogs program, and it was a way of getting our dads into our school. It mostly revolves around recess, but a number of our dads have extended their support into the classroom. And for a new program, we've had over 54 dads sign up to be PopCats, and our feedback is very positive. The last, and something that we're expanding on next year, is our Kindy Experience Day. This year we invited all brand new full-day kindergarten students for an experience day in August before the Leap Week. It was an opportunity for students and parents to experience a half day of school before school started. Kids participated in activities, began to develop some friendships, and allowed our staff to get to know the incoming class and assess academic levels. Then they took the information and built balanced classes and allowed the staff to plan the beginning of the year more effectively. The feedback has been great, and we are committed to expanding the day next year to all incoming kindergarten students, whether they're half day or full day. And to end, I'm very proud of the staff at Mark Twain, the students and the community we serve. We have a partnership that is unbreakable. I can go to the PTSA or I can go to our staff, and they always use the filter about what's best for kids, and that's refreshing as we have had to change the way we do things and had to adapt to our changing culture. Everyone is working hard to ensure our mission and core beliefs guide our work and that our students are prepared for the future. And we encourage any of you, if you're in the area, to stop in and see us. Thank you.
Craig, thanks so much for such a great presentation. Nancy,
Can you tell me again what PopCat stood for?
I really
PopCats?
like that idea.
I got to remember it because the acronym's hard. It is Papas on the Playgrounds, and the reason they went with Papas because it was easier for elementary kids to go, hey, Pop, rather than remember someone's name. And then CAT stands for Celebrating, Advocating, Team Building, and Sportsmanship.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Sounds a great program.
Yeah, it does. Very cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. In addition to our host school tonight, we have 3 groups to recognize. One, we have a student group of national and merit semifinalists and commended scholars from both ICS and Juanita High School. We also have National Board Certified Teachers here tonight to recognize, and then last but certainly not least, we have our school board to recognize. So we'd like to ask everyone to stay for the recognition, and then we'll do public comment. At this point, we just have one person signed up for public comment. Then we'll take a break. So there'll be a natural break, and that way everyone will get to stay and hear and see recognition for one another. So we're going to start with our students, and I'd like to invite first Dale Cody, who's Director of School Support for the Juanita Learning Community. Unfortunately, Principal Dr. Matt Livingston, who's principal at ICS, is ill, and he's not able to be here tonight. So Dale, we're happy to have Dale here to
help us recognize students. And I just want to make a quick note here. As the students come up, they're going to be facing the audience, and they'll have a microphone to speak. We are behind the students, but we have screens here, and so we'll be able to see the students' faces and what they're saying. So I just wanted to make sure people knew that we up here on the board dais can also hear and see what the students are sharing. So Dale, take it away.
Where it says push. There we go. The gentleman in the back was letting me know, so thank you. Anyway, on behalf of Dr. Livingston and ICS, he sends his regards. I'm going to be introducing, first of all, the commended scholars, and I'll apologize ahead of time. I haven't had the chance to meet all the students at ICS, and I'm going to give their names a very good go here. So, and if you could come up as I call your name. First, Anna Kalinov, Kurt Winder Gulati, Ann Lee, Ryan Mangione Smith, Jessica Perrin, Emma Puryear, Rachel Roberts, Osman Salahuddin, Dylan Steele, and Jarun Sun. As they come up, they each have a form that they have a couple of questions that they were asked to be prepared to speak to, that they're going to introduce themselves to you. And was there a microphone, Dr. Pierce? Oh, thank you. Yes. Thank you. So each student will tell you their name, the college they wish to attend, possible majors, and best educational experience to date.
My name is Anna Kalinov. My potential schools that I'm looking at right now are UC Berkeley, Columbia, Harvey Mudd, and Cornell. So far, I have been accepted to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. My potential college majors are either engineering or computer science. And my favorite educational experience was building an Inferno project that placed our school inside the Inferno and the different levels as different sins of students in the school. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kurt. I'm currently planning to attend University of Washington with the major of computer science. And my best educational experience to date was definitely in 11th grade when Dr. Livingston was able to rearrange the schedule of AP Spanish so that we were able to take the class even though it didn't have as many students as we hoped it would.
Hi, I'm Jessica Perrin. And I haven't really got everything figured out yet, but I am looking forward to attending Willamette University and possibly majoring in graphic design or environmental studies, so we'll see. My favorite educational experience was being involved in TEDx Redmond. A group of teenagers and I planned that event, and it was really great, you know, planning it, meeting all the brilliant people, and seeing it all come together on the event day. So.
Hello, my name is Emma Puryear, and currently I am looking at University of Oregon Architecture program. I actually submitted my portfolio today, so that's pretty exciting. So I'm looking into going into engineering or, structural engineering or architecture. And my favorite educational experience was probably going scuba diving at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center for astronaut training at Space Camp. So that was pretty cool.
Hi, my name is Rachel Roberts. I will be attending Stanford University in the fall. I would like to major in history and maybe international relations. And my best educational experience to date has been Mr. Over's AP Comparative Government class.
My name is Osman Salahuddin. Some colleges that I'm looking into are University of Pennsylvania or the University of Washington. I hope to major in biochemistry or biology, and my favorite educational experience to date is probably a rat dissection that we did in anatomy and physiology this year.
Hi, my name is Dylan Steele. I'm looking at Franklin College of Engineering or Harvey Mudd College. The major I want to go into is scientific theoretical computer physics. And my favorite educational experience so far is actually a Twitter conversation I had today, #StudentVoice with Arne Duncan.
Hi, my name is Jerry Sun. I'm not sure which college I'll specifically be attending, but I know I want to pursue a career in financial services. My favorite academic experience so far has been my senior culminating project, where I'm doing a project on equity trading options. Thank you.
And before we go any further, I want to apologize in case I did miss, based on this is Cody. Is Ashley you? Is Ashley you in the? Oh, please come up, Ashley. I'm so sorry. That poor thing's just terrified, sitting in the audience, going, "I came all this way." So I apologize, Ashley. We're glad you're here.
Well, I'm Ashley Yu, and kind of like Jessica, I don't really have anything set for college, but I do plan to pursue higher education. I'm looking into a major in biology, and my favorite academic experience would probably be competing and placing at the National Leadership Conference throughout the Future Business Leaders of America.
Great. And before you have a seat, could we have the parents of those students please stand and also be recognized for your support and hard work with your children, and a round of applause for everybody. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. You may have a seat. Next, I'll introduce the National Merit semifinalists. If you could come up as I call your name. Jack Eggleston, Brandon McNerney, Aishwarya Nirmal, Kathleen Park, and Anwel Wang. Go ahead.
My name is Jack Eggleston, and I hope to pursue engineering at either UC Berkeley or the University of Washington. And my favorite educational experience to date has been competing as a varsity witness at the Washington State mock trial competition.
My name is Brandon McNerney. I'm looking at colleges including MIT and University of Washington, planning on pursuing civil engineering. And I can't really say I've had a favorite educational experience, not because I haven't had a tremendous experience at ICS, but more because it seems like every experience just kind of compounds, and I think the more you learn, the more you want to learn, and the more interesting the education gets. So.
Hi, my name is Aishwarya Nirmal, and I'm looking into majoring in computer science or computer engineering. And some colleges I'm applying to are University of Washington, University of Southern California, and Harvey-Mudd. And my best educational experience would have to be participating in the National History Day competition.
Hi, my name is Katie Park, and a couple of the colleges that I'm most interested in right now are Wheaton College in Illinois and the University of California, San Diego. And I hope to play tennis in college, so those are a couple of schools I'm looking at to play. I'd have to say that for major, I'm mostly looking into marketing and communications and maybe advertising. And my best educational experience to date has probably been competing in the Future Business Leaders of America national competition with a lot of the people here and a lot of friends at my school, as well as serving as a state officer for the organization this year. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anwel Wang, and I hope to major in computer science. I'm currently applying to the University of Washington, and my favorite educational experience has been touring the Capitol building in Olympia. Thank you.
Fantastic. And also, could you have the parents of these students, if you're here, could you stand, please? And congratulations, everybody. Thank you. You may have a seat. And Dr. Pearson Board, on behalf of Dr. Livingston, he just appreciates the opportunity to have their students recognized tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, Dale, for being here this evening. Okay, I'd like to invite Principal Gary Moed, Principal of Juanita High School, to come forward to recognize our Juanita students.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Good evening, board members. It's such a pleasure to recognize our great students at Juanita High School. We have a great ship there with great things happen, and the students who you'll meet tonight really represent the very finest of our school, and really some wonderful, wonderful families as well. So first, for our commended scholars, it's my pleasure to introduce Maya Carlisle. Please come on up. Kayla D'Amico. Allison Greenlaw. Malika Iyer. Stella Perlick. Max Peterson. Sarah Stommel. And I know Anna and Haley told me they couldn't come this evening. Is Mira here? Mira Lam? No. Okay. So these are our wonderful commended scholars. And if we have a microphone. Okay. Please go ahead.
My name is Maya Carlisle, and some of the schools that I've been interested in, I have applied to, are Vanderbilt, University of Evansville, Smith, Bryn Mawr, Mount Holyoke, and Amherst. I'm interested in archaeology and anthropology, and the best educational experience that I've experienced to date is my senior culminating project, where I've been volunteering at Bothell Pediatric and Hand Therapy, working with the therapists and the patients there.
Hello, my name is Kayla D'Amico, and some of the colleges I'm looking into are Pepperdine University and Claremont McKenna College in California. I hope to swim and dive at the college level, so I'm very excited to go somewhere where their pools are as gorgeous as their football fields. I'm looking to pursue a degree in psychology, hopefully leaning towards developmental psychology to work with children. And my best educational experience has definitely been the time I've spent in the business and marketing program and the DECA chapter at our school. We've gotten a lot of great learning opportunities where leaderships and conferences that we've attended, and some great networking opportunities.
Hi, I'm Allison Greenlaw. I don't know where I'll be attending college yet, but I'm looking to pursue cellular biology or neurobiology. One of my best educational experiences so far was taking AP Chemistry with Mr. Bailey, because I'd never taken chemistry before, and he really made it doable, which was surprising.
Hi, I'm Malika Iyer. I'm currently applied to a lot of colleges, and so far I've been accepted by some, including St. Louis University and Loyola Chicago with merit scholarships. I'm looking for a major in pre-med and music, and my favorite educational experience so far has been being part of Juanita Orchestra.
Hi, I'm Stella Perlick. I'm looking to major in music, so I'm applying to Eastman School of Music and Michigan, some other schools too. And my favorite educational experience to date has been my AP Physics that I'm in this year. And it's not a class at Juanita, but the staff made it happen for me, and I'm taking it as an independent study.
Hi, my name is Max Peterson. I'm not sure where I'm going to be going to college yet, but my hopeful major is biomedical engineering. And my favorite educational experience to date is working with some of the Juanita swim team members on diet, nutrition, and working out.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm looking to go to college for forensic sciences, hopefully at Seattle University or Gonzaga University. And my favorite educational experience was probably the research project I got to do in 9th grade bio about ALS, because my uncle died from that, so it was really nice to learn about it.
Thank you all so much. Great job. So we also want to recognize the great Juanita moms and dads of our commended scholars. Can you guys just take a bow? Stand up, take a bow. Thank you. I'm very proud to introduce our National Merit semifinalist who made a special trip here. She had a choice between being honored by the Kirkland Rotary and coming here, and she made the right decision. So here she is. So please welcome and congratulate Miss Gloria Liu. Gloria?
Hi, I'm Gloria Liu, and a couple of colleges I'm thinking about going to is probably Cal Poly, Duke, and Cornell. And I'm thinking about majoring in computer science or engineering. And also, probably my best educational experience has been watching a pregnant salmon dissection at the Seattle Aquarium, which is really cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you. And Gloria's mom and dad are here. I spoke to them earlier. Can you guys just take a quick bow? Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Pierce and board members.
Thank you, Gary. And let's just do one more round of applause to all of our awesome students. One of the reasons we have such wonderful students in our district is because we have such wonderful teachers. And we're tonight going to recognize a specific group of teachers who have made a major accomplishment. And I'm going to ask Director of Professional Learning, Stephen Bryant, to come forward. And he's going to talk a little bit about our National Board Certified Teachers, and we're going to recognize them here this evening.
Great. Thank you. And what an exciting night to be here. We start with a grade school and work through high school students, and then this experience is going to prove to you that lifelong learning is what our lives are about, because we have some people who've proved that tonight. So first of all, I'd like to start off by thanking our school board and superintendent for this opportunity to honor this year's National Board Certified Teachers. The National Board for Professional Teaching Standards is an independent, nonprofit, nonpartisan, and non-governmental organization that was formed in 1987 to advance the quality of teaching and learning by developing professional standards for accomplished teaching, by creating a voluntary system to certify teachers who meet those standards, and by integrating certified teachers into the educational reform effort. Professional educators can earn National Board certification in 25 subject areas. This year, 15 teachers in the Lake Washington School District achieved National Board certification. There are now 246 National Board certified teachers working full-time in the district, and they are part of 6,000 National Board certified teachers within Washington State. The Lake Washington School District ranks 4th in the state, in Washington State, for our total number of National Board certified teachers. Nationally, there are over 100,000 distinguished teachers who have achieved their National Board certification since 1987. Teachers earn this prestigious credentials through a rigorous assessment that generally takes a year or more to complete. It requires teachers to demonstrate how their work improves student achievement. As part of the process, teachers build a portfolio that includes student work samples, assignments, videotapes, and a thorough analysis of their classroom teaching. Additionally, teachers are assessed on their knowledge of the content area that they teach. This certification is considered the highest professional certification a teacher can obtain. The success of our National Board Certification Program rests on a strong partnership with the Lake Washington Education Association. We are thankful for this partnership. Kevin Teeley, the association's president, is unable to be with us today. However, he shares in honoring this year's cohort of new National Board Certified Teachers. We are proud of our National Board Certified Teachers and are pleased with the opportunity to recognize them this evening. Now I'd like to introduce two special people to you, Kathy Colombo and Tanya Erickson, who are two of our National Board facilitators. Our National Board facilitators have coached and mentored our teachers throughout the entire certification process. Kathy and Tanya now will officially recognize the teachers. They will call their names and invite them up to receive their district recognition. We are also asking them to remain up front to tell us what their school of choice will be. And no, just joking, got that messed up, sorry. We're asking them to remain up front so that we can take a group photo and recognize them all at once.
Marcy
Benanakam. Congratulations. Sarah Hay. Probably go stand. Sorry. We're doing individual photo shoots. This is cool. Tina Hickox. Janelle Jameson. Stephanie Marshall. Jennifer Russell. I feel like cheering for each of you. Natalia Stein. Ashley Weirley. Julie Lind. Michael Plushke. Michelle Valine. Christina Dividal. Rachel Holland. Rochelle Horner. Michelle Toth. Grace Brady. Tanya Erickson. Congratulations. Barb Wendell. And Dory West. There was a group of 5 teachers who completed the renewal this year, and that was Tanya, Barb, Dory, Grace, and myself. Yeah.
Wait.
Congratulations again to all of you. It's a major accomplishment, incredible effort, and we're really proud of the work that you do. Our last group for recognition this evening is our school board. And one of the reasons we have such amazing students and one of the reasons we have such fabulous teachers is because we have such an incredible board. And our governor has declared January as School Board Recognition Month. So I'd like to read a proclamation from Governor Jay Inslee's office. And I'm going to add at the very end a couple whereas statements of my own that aren't the governor's, but then I'll end it with the governor's proclamation. So here we go. Whereas the mission of Washington's public school system is to assure that all students achieve at high levels and possess the knowledge and skills to be responsible citizens and enjoy productive and satisfying lives. And whereas Washington's 295 locally elected school boards are the core of the public education governance system in our state, and whereas the districts they lead serve more than 1 million students, have a combined annual budget of nearly $10 billion, and employ more than 160,000 people, and whereas school directors play a crucial role in promoting student learning and achievement by creating a vision, establishing policies and budgets, and setting clear standards of accountability for all involved, and whereas school directors are directly accountable to the citizens in their districts, serving as a vital link between members of the community and their schools, and whereas school directors provide a passionate voice of advocacy for public schools and the welfare of school children, And whereas it is appropriate to recognize school directors as outstanding volunteers and champions for public education, and now these are my whereas statements, whereas I am an incredibly fortunate superintendent because I get to work with such a committed, smart, and professional board, and whereas I enjoy very much collaborating with you and working with you to ensure that all of our students receive the very best education they can, and whereas you work countless hours volunteering for absolutely no pay to contribute to the district. Now, therefore, I, Jay Ensley, and Tracy Pierce do hereby proclaim January 2014 as School Board Recognition Month. So a big round of applause. I hope you'll join me in congratulating our board. We have a very, very small token of appreciation for you that you can open later, but just a big thank you for everything that you do.
And thank you for the recognition and the kind words. I like your whereases to add to the governor. And I also want to thank all of you in the audience who've come tonight to be here with your students and for the students to come. It's very important for us that you take time and see this as an important place to come to be recognized, and so we appreciate very much all of you coming tonight, and certainly all the teachers. And again, if we didn't have the staff that we have and the hard work they put in, and often thankless time and unrecognized time for what they do to make every day an important day in the life of a student. And so we thank you very much for continuing to learn and grow in your profession as well to be the best that you can be, and great role models for our students. And we wish our students the best of luck in their next endeavor. We do have one person who signed up for public comment. We'll have her come forward. Shelley, you're here. Flores. And then after that, we'll take a short break.
My name is Shelley Flores, and I am the treasurer of the Lake Washington PTSA Council, and this is a thank you. On behalf of the council, I do want to say that my sons both have graduated from Redmond High, and they're on their way into university, so it does happen. So on behalf of the council and our scholarship basket auction chair, Amy Lofquist, we would like to thank everyone here at the district for allowing us to take over your lobby for a month for our basket auction. And we netted this year $7,899, which is more than we've done in the past, but it helps to fund our scholarship program for both students and staff. And we want to thank everyone who bought a basket, who bid on a basket, who bought raffle tickets. We want to thank everyone who donated raffle prizes, donated a basket, and this includes our local PTAs, the Lake Washington Education Association, the Lake Washington Schools Foundation, the Central Leadership Team, a number of businesses in the area, and our own council board. So we kind of thought about how many years we've done this, and we're kind of thinking it's about 30. And if we averaged about $10,000 of scholarships a year, we've given out over $300,000 in scholarships, post-secondary scholarships. And we are honored at this year's Board of Directors and our council to continue that tradition. So look for those applications in probably March 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Yes, the scholarship program has been a very exciting one, and lots of students have benefited from that. So please look for those applications at your schools, because they're both for staff and for our students. So let's take a 5-minute break. This way we can allow students to go home and maybe do some homework or get ready for school for tomorrow, and the same thing for staff. And thank you again for all being here. Donations?
Okay, tab 8, we've got a number of donations this evening totaling $122,627. So we've got a $5,223 donation from the Lake Washington Schools Foundation to various schools to provide stipends for Reaching to Success programs at Smith Elementary and Rose Hill Middle School. A $5,369 donation from the Audubon Elementary PTSA to Audubon Elementary to provide stipends for choir, unicycling club, running club, and intramural sports. A $14,900 donation from A.G. Bell PTSA to Bell Elementary to support library, assemblies, their school website, field trips, staff development, and classroom enrichment. $2,160 from Emily Dickinson PTSA to Dickinson Elementary to purchase a sound system and PE equipment. $7,495 from the Margaret Mead Elementary PTSA to Mead Elementary to provide stipends for Operation School Bell, Links, Student Advisory Council, Music Club, and their Green Team. $3,624 from the John Muir Elementary PTSA to Muir Elementary to support field trips. $7,680 from Laura Ingalls Wilder Elementary PTSA to Wilder Elementary to provide stipends for Math Olympiad, Motor Skills Enrichment, Jump Rope Club, and Fall Academic Enrichment. $20,000 from the Environmental and Adventure School PTO to EAS to support school goals. $20,000 from an anonymous donor to EAS to support their outdoor education program. $9,627 from the Eastlake High School PTSA to Eastlake High School to support numerous departments and programs including business, special education, speech and debate, counseling, library, wellness, DECA, and humanities. $4,559 from the Eastlake Boys Basketball Booster Club to Eastlake High School to provide a stipend for coaching. A $4,838 donation from the Wolves Football Association to Eastlake High School to provide a stipend for coaching. $4,330 from the Brandon W. Freiling to Juanita High School to purchase a desktop 3D printer, supplies, and a protection plan. $1,321 from the Redmond High School PTSA to Redmond High School to purchase student planners, and $11,500 from the STEM School PTSA to the STEM School to purchase emergency preparedness materials. So all total this evening, we have $122,627 in donations.
And yes, wow, and very generous again and continued from our partners and from our PTSAs, and thank you. Absolutely. I know all the schools appreciate various contributions to their programs and supplies and things like that. Okay, non-consent agenda time.
Okay, so we have a end result monitoring report this evening. Matt Montebianco is going to be providing the presentation for the report this evening in Heather's place. So Matt, if you want to come on up, I'll turn it right over to you. We've got ER23 Middle School this evening.
Thank you very much. I am beginning with ER2, highlighting that, as you know, this is a multi-year by class data on large-scale measures, which measure the content areas. And we will be disaggregating that data by groups, showing you some gender, ethnic, program, free and reduced, including the length of time the measure's been reported district-wide, and where appropriate, show a progression of class performance. Something that we're going to highlight tonight within the three buckets, if you will, or the three big areas, in addition to the progress data, the growth data, and our comparison data between neighboring districts, we're going to spend some time talking about student growth percentiles, and I'm going to have John Holman, who's one of our directors of school support, join me in that part of the presentation. So just to take a minute here is reminding us that progress data is really looking at grade level progress over time. Our growth data is class of, so we're following the cohort of the class over time. And then, of course, the comparison is looking at how are we doing with our neighboring school districts around us. For this report tonight, we're really looking at the sequence of going through what are our performance targets, what does our data analysis look like in terms of strengths and opportunities, some data snapshots, The progress data will look at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade data, particularly MSP. Growth data will look at the class of 2019, 18, and 17, who are our current 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. We'll then at that point move into some information and presentation on the introduction of growth percentiles. We'll look at our district comparison and then do some conclusion and next steps. And I was told that this needs to stay within a half an hour, so I'm now looking up at the clock, making sure that I do that. As you remember from our strategic plan, because you were part of helping set these targets, our percentage of 8th graders meeting or exceeding state standards in reading by 2018 is 94%. And in writing, in 7th grade, it's 95%, in math, 88%, and in science, 93%. In one of the slides, I'm going to show you, at least at this point in time, where are 8th graders and are they on target to meeting those goals, which are several years off. Some of the summary information that I gleaned as I was going through tonight's presentation, kind of getting ready for it and thinking what are some of the high points to mention to you. In terms of the progress data, our 6th grade math has gone from an initial starting point of 71% to 80% at standard currently, where reading has gone from 80 to 85. I just thought that was an interesting difference between the two, and seeing that math has been making a steady increase over time. In terms of trying to close gaps, we see a similar pattern in 6th grade of ethnic groups in terms of their progression over time and getting stronger. In 7th grade, what I found, again, noticeable was that our math went from an initial starting point of 78% proficient, or at standard, to 84%, where reading went from 81 to 84. The pattern of growth for Hispanic students seems stronger to me, and we look at it when we look at the data. In reading, we went from 53 to 65%. That's quite a jump. And in math, from 45 to 56. That's pretty significant. That's over 10 points. You'll see that in the context, well, how did the other groups do? But that really did kind of pop out at me as something important. In 8th grade, the math went from 61 to 75% over the last several years, where reading has gone just from 82 to 83. The pattern of growth, again, with our Hispanic students in reading went from 52% at standard to 63%, and from a starting point of an embarrassing 25% to 53% at standard. So that's over half. That's quite a jump. We still see some disappointing news in that our progress trend for special ed and ELL still is not moving at a pace that we would like it to. The special ed data is fairly flat over time. The progress trend for ELL shows greater gains in math than in reading, which is a hopeful part of that. Still wanting to see even greater growth. Here are some of the snapshots. This is the first one of all 6th grade students looking at both reading and math over time. This is the one where I was making the comment they went from a beginning point of 71 in math in 9-10 to 80 last year. I wasn't counting that the year before they were at 83 in 11-12. When we break out the ethnicity and we see how are the 6th graders doing over time, this is when I said there's a fairly steady pattern. I mean, you see Asian 85, 89, 91, 91, with the exception of the low numbers and that are kind of changing, and the variability in our black population. The Hispanic, very steady again, following suit, 60, 63, 71, 65, and similar to our white, 82, 89, 89, 87. In math, as I pointed out, here's where we see some pretty strong gains for our Hispanic group from 48 to 53 in 6th grade. And the comments I made about special ed being fairly flat, as you see there in 6th grade reading and math. We will have some additional slides and information on the low income and comparing them to non-low income at the end of each grade. So when we look at low income, both reading and math, again, that is something I describe as being fairly flat, not going very far, not going anywhere. Here's that slide. So we have comparison here, because I know we've been asked the last time, well, I'd like to know, I think it's from Chris, you had asked the question, it was, I don't want to just know how the low income are doing, but I really want to compare them against the non-low income and likewise special ed with non-special ed. So you can see the comparisons between those two groups on this particular slide. I'm going to move into 7th grade. In 7th, we look at the overall reading and math over the course of the years. I pointed out that we went from 78 to 84 in math for this group as well. When we look at the ethnicity, here again is where I made the comment, our Hispanic group seemed to grow quite a bit there from 53 to 65, not counting the outlier year of 70 in 11-12. Here's our 7th grade math in ethnicity. What did I just do? Oh, isn't that unusual? 2 slides. Are they the same? I'm sorry. There it is. It's the time of the night. And I wanted to see if you're following along. Here's our math. Writing.
Pretty high everywhere.
Special ed and ELL. The low income by itself, and then when we compare how does low income to non-low income look, how does special ed to non-special ed look.
Do you have a comparison for writing for the low income versus non-low income?
This would be looking at, is it 8th grade we use?
Yeah, it's 7th grade before.
7th grade
Yeah.
writing. We could get that. We've got, this is it not to have the writing? We did reading and math. We could do that. We could pull that, Mark.
But we don't have it in the presentation tonight.
Now we're going to look at the 8th graders. Something that we don't normally, I mean, you haven't seen it maybe before, so I just wanted to call it to your attention, is at the far right, the 2018 target data is blue, reading, math is the tan, 88, and science is 93. So if we look at last year, we were at 83 in reading. Our target for 2018 is 94. 75 in math. It's a gradual increase over time from 61 to 75, and our target is 88. I think there's good growth taking place there. And 83 in writing, I'm sorry, science, and the target goal is 93.
Those are going to be hard, but they're pretty steady. You know, those, the reading and the science have stayed pretty stable over the years, so those, getting to our goal is going to be a little more work.
We had this conversation when we were preparing this a couple of weeks ago about at what point do you know, it's one thing to say, well, they've stayed flat. I've used that word, the scores are flat, but when you're already in the high 80s or the mid 80s, it's going to get harder to boost that overall average, because you're already, you're already that high. What is it going to take? As well as saying, when is, I don't want to say, you set the goal as what is good enough, and good enough is pretty high, 94 and 88 and 93.
Along that line, at the same time, I think it begs the question, then what do we have to do differently in which to bring it to that level? If what we do now keeps us there, how do we change and grow to bring it to that next level? So I think that's the conversation to be having.
Yeah, it is.
And maybe does it also reflect perhaps the concentration on math, that it's getting more of a concentration to the testing and so forth than the reading is? That's what it seems to me, that you have more and more kids going into math classes, but you have a whole lot less reading, writing. It seems to be a higher concentration on it to me.
In terms of attention being given in class is what you're saying, in terms of the attention given to math in school?
Yeah.
I think maybe to that point, historically, so if you look back to 9-10, our lowest scores were in math, and so we have put a lot of emphasis on math over the years. I mean, and it's always our goal not to take attention away from one area, and that's, just we're going to have to continue to figure out how do we ensure that we're emphasizing all areas, equally. And I also thinking about our work session from earlier tonight on intervention programs, thinking about, the 15%-ish who aren't currently meeting the standard in reading and science, for example, and the 25% in math, doing a good job of identifying who are those students and what specific interventions do they need to get over that bump. And we've got some of the pieces in place, and we've got some identified areas to continue to improve so we can actually, meet those targets.
So it's one of those things that would be interesting to be looking at in the work plan, strategic plan going forward, what sort of pilots can get done in those areas that are specifically targeting that, and then evaluating those as they go. Are they making those moves? I always think dyslexia is definitely one thing in there. If we don't assess it, we don't address it. That easily can be impacting, especially as you move up into the higher grades, and being able to do this because of the shift in the demand placed upon those students.
I think also the executive function, or what I consider organizational skills, I think that plays a major part in the flattening of the reading, because I don't think that there's enough attention given to it, and the attention that has been given to it is woefully inadequate.
One of the things, if I were to compare our earlier session on, and the comments we were making about response to intervention, and build on something that Dr. Pierce just mentioned a little minute ago, if we've really been focused on, that was an intervention session. Now we also, though, on one of the slides shows the 4 critical questions, is once they know it, what are you doing to challenge them, which then goes back to our previous board work session on acceleration. So it really is also speaking to Siri's point of, what is it that the specific strategies are needed, not just for those students who are struggling, but those that are at standard to take them to the next level as well, and getting really specific around what is that strategy that's going to require us to be doing things differently to move you to the next phase. So I want to emphasize that my remarks are not meant to say, oh, this is as good as it's going to get at all, but that it's going to get harder as we get closer and closer to 90 to keep pushing that forward. You're just so high. It's easier to make greater gains when you're starting from a very, very low point, and we're at a pretty high point.
Yeah. The other thing, though, we got to keep in mind, I think, is the unknown of when we've got smarter balanced assessments coming on aligned to Common Core, and the Common Core being more rigorous standards that at this point we, along with every other district in the state, anticipate that we're going to see a dip in our scores when those new assessments come on board. And so it's almost going to be sort of like a new baseline in some ways to figure out where are we now that the world has changed and we're assessing to a higher standard, and then what do we need to do to really get to 100 at some point. But
and just an aside from this, I think the other piece that we're going to have to pay attention to is movements in the legislature, as they're looking to change our ability to have time to allow for professional development by, if they decide that they aren't going to let us have early dismissals or that sort of thing, is how do you then allow that time throughout the year? I think they don't understand or give the credibility to the fact that allowing teachers to work all year long together as they go through the year is far more beneficial to our students than to do a dump at the beginning of the year and say, take it with you and through the year. And I just don't think they realize how important that is for our staff to talk to one another about what they're doing and strategies and putting in place the things that you're talking about to help the kids individually in their school. And there's movement afoot, obviously, in bills coming up to limit time, taking time away from the day. So how did then we find time to add to the day if you have to in order to continue it?
So can you remind me when we switched over from the WASL to the MSP? Was that 9-10 to 10-11?
I believe 9-10 is the first year of MSP,
think so.
isn't it?
I think it's 9-10, but I want to confirm that.
That's all right.
So we'll double check.
Anyway, just staring at these, okay.
9,
That's
10
what,
is when.
I think that's why we start with.
I think
yeah,
that's why we're starting with
that's the
9,
first
10.
year of MSP.
Yeah.
So this is all MSP and not Wassel on here at all, so that would be 9, 10.
The I don't know, in staring at this, I'm trying to be, I don't know, excited, but practically speaking, the first year of MSP to the second year of MSP, you'd expect a fair amount of acclimatization to the test. So we have big gains across the board. After that point, we're more or less treading water, perhaps with the exception of math. And so I guess the positive way of phrasing one of my questions is, if you think we have been making progress in math because we've been placing emphasis upon it, and is that at the expense of the other subjects?
I think, I would say it this way. I was actually going to ask, not putting him on the spot, but I know that John, working with school support and their team, for a number of years, they've been setting in their SIP goals math goals, and math has been an area of focus. I think it's been for the last several years.
I've got a mic here. I think we did, given that we needed work to do in math, we concentrated in math, but still have SIP goals in the other areas as well, and especially at middle school and high school, when you've got teams of teachers, you know, looking at data and setting goals that then are aggregated up to the building goal, there's not a competing focus necessarily at the middle school because you've got math teachers and you've got English teachers who teach reading and writing, so it's not like they have to decide. Whereas that might be a little more of a challenge in elementary school.
That's true.
But we've also done work to say, here's the instructional program at elementary, and here's how much time you should spend on each content area, because we don't want to put, you know, one content area over another. So that would be my answer.
Okay.
I don't think that's necessarily a factor in middle school.
What I
would like,
which is helpful, but I actually wanted one last piece of this is as we anticipate the Common Core coming on, I'd really like to not have to stick around for another term to build a baseline of data upon which to draw conclusions from the Common Core. So to whatever extent you can, coming up with a plan for how are we going to cross-compare MSP against Common Core is really valuable. I mean, the transition from WASL to MSP has basically shown me that it's sort of a reset on the system, that we don't feel confidently compare things. And if we get to 93% in the first year of Common Core, I'm sure as heck not going to give ourselves credit. It's a different test. So how are we going to do that crossover so that we know how much is to our credit versus how much is the instrument that we're using?
The other piece that is when we see these changes, knowing what programmatically has shifted that might have caused those changes would be beneficial. Much as you've talked about the Latino group showing higher, the question would be, are we doing anything different with this population that we would expect this to be true? Or is this a shifting of demographics of who our Latinos are and who so if we can be predicting what we expect to see and then seeing if it occurs, I think it can help to answer some of those things from a programmatic piece along with our data piece.
I also think there's a limit to what you can expect since we don't know what the Common Core is going to look like. And since there is an assumption that test scores will drop with it, if we do make a 93, I am certainly willing to give our staff a lot of credit.
Assumptions aside, it's just one of those things where we could go up or we could go down, and it could just be a different test. And then the second year will probably improve.
And we know that, but I don't think you can build, I mean, I think what you're asking for would be really nice. I just don't know that it's a reasonable request.
What I'm asking for is what I always ask for.
Yes.
I would like to be able to measure progress without having to say, well, next year we'll know. And next year, we'll know more.
Powers that be are determined to not allow us to have
we have to figure out a way to deal with that as best we can, so that if the system externally changes, if what we're being assessed on nationally changes, that we still have something internally that's a barometer. And personally, I'd be perfectly happy to use the PSAT. If we administer the PSAT universally for this age bracket, that becomes a barometer.
We have it at 10th grade now. It's universal at 10th grade.
It is universal, but not till, they don't do it in 8th grade, dear.
I know we don't do it in 8th grade, but anything that we could administer, having something, and it's just at the benchmark years.
Well,
it's basically 4th, 8th, and 10th that I care about.
And our own course assessments. Of course, I don't know how much that's evolving.
Yeah, the only, since it's not just, we have to remember, it's not just that the test is going to change, the standards are actually changing. So
Right.
the assessments that we do, our district assessments are also going to change to be aligned
Yes.
to the new standards. So I hear you, and I mean, it is something we're going to have to noodle over.
It's not solved, I'm not asking you to solve it tonight.
Right.
But it's something
Being
where,
aware.
to the extent you can come to us beforehand with a, hey, here's something we'd like to try, I'd love to see that.
Well, let's just hope in 4 years we don't see this again with another new set.
Actually, I'm assuming that in another 4 years, we will see this again. New Congress, new legislators, they're going to solve the same old problems the same old way by changing the rules. So I would like to come up with a way to deal with the external stuff changing and have internal numbers mean something.
Yep.
To Jackie's point about the legislature trying to cut back on time for continuing education for teachers and learning process, is it possible for us to look at those teachers that were just honored here and others in the year prior to them and compare their students' results on these various standards to teachers who have not gone that extra mile to show what it means to become accredited and to show how continuing education really ups the level of delivery? I think that might be something to give us some ammunition to fight away the Mongols.
Well, I mean,
Prefer to
there's
think of it as
research
body
around
ammunition.
that
Yeah.
nationally that looks at that. I don't know what it,
I'd
actually
like
what
to
the
be able to-
outcomes are. It would be a piece I would say it'd be recommended to look at what research has been done and know what the findings are in regards to its effectiveness. I'm not sure. It's that challenge of, are we evaluating an organization or can we utilize best practices and other research that universities have utilized? So it's a combination that we could utilize other resources that have been done that could answer that question.
Well, that's fine to look at the other resources, but to make it come home to a legislator in Olympia, they don't care as much about the national or a study somewhere back east. They care about their own teachers and their own students, I think.
I think, you know, the question that's sort of underlying this is, does professional learning and time for professional collaboration make a difference on student learning? And I think that that is an area that, given discussions in the legislature, districts are trying to grapple with now to say, what could we present as data? Do we have data? You know, or is there maybe a combination of national research and local data that shows that that time is meaningful and makes a difference?
Well, you want to be able to show
in
them
student
the
learning.
national.
Right.
You don't want to just, I don't want to say to dismiss the national, but to show it in comparison and show, hopefully then that means ours is better than national, but who knows?
But it's not that, it's more of a lit review concept of looking at it so that you have an understanding of the basis from which you're working, so therefore you know what to look at when you're going searching into what you're doing. It's also a way of balancing resources and expertise, if you have staff in which to do it.
Well, you know, we're never going to be able to get all the data to support this that we might want. But we can certainly say that internationally, we constantly are being compared to the TIMSS and, what's the other one? The PISA. And if you look at the countries that do really well, besides all the other factors nobody wants to consider, like they only test certain kids, et cetera, those countries where you really are being put on a pedestal by at least our federal legislators, spend a lot more time on staff development and staff working together than we do. And the very fact that we still have legislators who want to dictate to us, you know, how we use the little bit of time that we have in order to ease in as much staff development and staff working together as we can, I find personally offensive. I watched the WASDA Ledge webinar, whatever, on Friday, and it is personally offensive for them to think that our teachers do not need any prep time, staff development time, time to work together. There is not a business in the world that operates that way. Not a single business in the world.
Including
it is
theirs,
ludicrous.
including the legislature.
Including the legislature.
Well, they spend a lot of time collaborating and talking and whatever before they do, quote unquote, what they say is their work.
So we have worked out a system within the limits that we have. They are they keep adding what they want us to be able to do. There's much more we'd like to be able to do, but this
Ready to move on.
180 days, you know, okay, I was just offended, and I'm still offended. Thank you very much.
You may proceed now.
Okay, thank you.
I told you I'd be the curmudgeon this time now. It's okay.
I'm going to move us to
Too many years
the
doing
other
this.
ways that we look at data, because I want to keep us seeing other pieces, especially the student growth percentiles. So the other way we look at data is by class of, and so this would be showing you our 7th graders class of data over time from 3rd grade through 6th grade, comparing reading and math. This is the data for all students looking at reading, math, and writing. There's zeros, meaning not that they scored 0, but there were no tests that year, and we can't get that not to show. This is our current 9th graders and their benchmark on 4th through 8th grade in the area of reading, math, and science. Quite a jump in science for the span from 4th to 8th. And now I'm going to introduce you to student growth percentiles. Another way we've looked at, we're starting to look at, rather, not another way, a way that we're starting to look at data, and I'm going to introduce John Holman for this part.
So I think some of you have a background a little bit in student growth percentiles, but I am going to go through a little bit of the background and history of student growth percentiles. So when I show you student growth percentiles at the district and at the middle level, you'll have a semi-understanding of what we're referencing. So the state defines student growth percentiles as a student's growth over the past year compared to other students with similar prior test scores. I think it's important to highlight that in a letter to parents, OSPI highlights that a student growth percentile, it's another indicator to consider when thinking about students and their overall picture, that it's important to consider in conjunction with achievement, grades, classwork completion, social emotional development, and all of those indicators that we look at when we're really thinking about, is a child growing and progressing. Washington State is just now coming on board with student growth percentiles. It's been in place in a number of states for a number of years. At this point in time, we were the 23rd and possibly the 24th state to adopt student growth percentiles as a mechanism for looking at student progress. We have just rolled these out to parents as of last week. And so, but the state has been calculating these for the last 3 years. And so we have 3 years worth of student growth percentiles to reference for all of our students and all of our schools. So what's the purpose of student growth percentiles? They describe a student's growth compared to other students statewide, not peers within the school district, with similar prior test scores. They're a metric for looking at growth of individual students. It's also a metric for looking at schools, but it's also a metric for looking at our district. A couple of terms that are important to understand when thinking about student growth percentiles. Normative growth. So really it's the change in percentile rank in relation to academic peers. And the state defines an academic peer is peers that have the following attributes: grade, subject, and statistically similar performance in the previous year. And so it's a student that academically or achievement-wise is similar. Another key piece about our MSP and HSPE is that they're not vertically scaled assessments. And so I know for years a lot of administrators, guilty, have looked at MSP to MSP and said, oh, this student scored 405 this year and they scored 425 the following year, it looks like they made 20 points of progress. Well, that's not accurate because the assessments aren't built that way. They're built as individual, kind of isolated events in time rather than a continuum of assessment throughout the years. And so that's why student growth percentiles are a key piece to understanding how students' performance relates from one year to the next. Part of the state's rollout of student growth percentiles was to develop amoebas. What you see here is the shadows in the background and the highlighted bubbles are every district in the state, or every school in the state represented in one graphic. The highlighted bubbles are the Lake Washington School District. The larger the bubble, the larger the school. So you can see, just based visually, in relation to our state peers, we have a high achievement. When talking about the middle level,
John, just real quick, can you, I thought it was on there, but maybe we just can't see it on our screen, or I can't see it on mine. I can see it like sideways if I look at Mark's, but the quadrants, can you?
Sure. So the lower left quadrant.
Do you see it? You can see it?
It's washed out.
Okay. I can't see it on mine, but if I look this way,
I can't see it on mine.
I can see it, so I just wanted to make sure everybody else could see the quadrants. High achievement, low growth, yeah.
Right.
If you could just verbally just say upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right.
It needs an adjustment in, because I'm
You
pink
can't
all
quite see
over.
it.
So
and
when
you
you
got
think
orange in
vertically,
yours.
the dots are, the bubbles are placed for achievement scores, and when you look horizontally, they're placed for the growth percentile. And so when we're looking at this, the lower left quadrant is low growth, low achievement, and should be of high concern. The upper left quadrant is high achievement, low growth. And a lot of times, we look at our high achievement students and say, great, we're doing really well. Well, this gives us a measure to say, we're doing really well, but is there something else we could be doing? So possibly, is there more rigor that could be provided for this student because they are so high achieving, but compared to their academic peers, they're not showing the same level of growth on the same measures. The lower right quadrant is high growth, but low achievement. So those are times when we have a student that maybe they're performing at level 1 or level 2. They're showing a lot of progress within that level, and maybe they haven't gotten to standard yet, but they've showed significant progress or growth over the last year compared to their academic peers. And then in the upper right quadrant, we have the high achievement and high growth. And since we're discussing the middle level tonight, for reading, I put in the percentile, the student growth percentile, the median for the schools in Lake Washington School District, which is 54. So if you think a 50th percentile, half of the schools are below, half of the schools are above. Our median student growth percentile for our middle schools is 54. I think another key thing to point out is the state has placed bands on the student growth percentiles to identify low, typical, and high growth. So they define low growth as the 33rd percentile and below, typical growth, the 34th to the 66th percentile, and high growth as the 67th percentile and above. And so the middle schools in Lake Washington School District would be right in the middle of that typical growth. When looking at math, if I just toggle back to this, you'll see the scores are a little bit, the distribution is a little bit different across the state. The middle school student growth percentile for Lake Washington is 56.
So if they need that live for you to generate these graphs?
Pardon me?
Sorry, these look like they're coming out of the R statistical package or something similar to that. Is this a live website where you dial it up and say, show me LWSD schools?
Yes, and you hover over, I mean, we took a screenshot of that, but on the actual live site that's on the OSPI website, you hover over that bubble.
Yeah, no, I'd definitely have a lot of fun if you could point me at that website.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's just OSPI?
It's on the root.
K-12? Okay, thanks.
We can send you the link and the pathway to get there.
This is that bubble graph is their birth child. I mean, I would hate to think that there isn't a better way to represent that.
Well, I think it's just a visual way of representing the data that lives behind. This is, hundreds of schools.
Yeah.
And so...
it just looks like germs migrating.
There are ways that, I mean, every representation tells different stories, same data. It's lies, damn lies, and statistics. But this is one of the things I've been looking for as a metric for, have we got low-performing, in an absolute sense, schools? They're doing a lot better than they should. And we've got one there in district math. Our lowest point in the right quadrant is somebody who's starting from a low baseline and doing a great job. That's a very impressive detail. It's also kind of surprising, if you go back to district reading, that we've got one of our very high-performing schools is doing an extraordinary job of making them even higher. So on the previous slide, there's a point in the top right quadrant that's our only really overperforming. It's above the 66%. That's a school that started in the 95th percentile and yet is outperforming other schools that started in that realm. There aren't that many schools there, so it's impressive. Anyway, so there I'm not so worried about the high-performing school starting from a high base. It's the school that's starting at a low base and is doing a great job moving those kids along. That's really, I hope, what the value will be to the system of trying to interpret these. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think this bubble here.
Yeah, that bubble I'm very interested in what they're doing right.
It represents a school that their achievement has obviously come from a different place than everyone else, but to show, the 75th percentile of growth.
On a comparable SES background, statistically, that school is doing a better job than most schools who start from the same starting point. So I'm thrilled with that, and their absolute numbers may not be fantastic, but whatever they're doing well. At least I hope that's what this actually means. I'm going to have to tear into the statistics to make sure they know what they're doing. So I'll get back to you on that. Yeah, okay. Haven't seen this before, so thanks.
If you can't find the technical reports, we can send those to you as well. I'm sure you'd enjoy them. They're thick. And so...
and then this is stuff that I can understand is on this page.
And so all of our schools receive this level of report, which shows the 3 years of student growth percentiles, and it also breaks down a variety of demographic factors for them to look at. When looking at demographic factors, the students aren't being compared. Let's take our low-income students. They're not taking low-income students and comparing to low-income students. They're comparing low-income students to their academic peers. And so they pull those students out of the overall percentile ranking and then find for the low-income students where their median score is. So they're always compared to their academic peers. It's never comparing low-income to low-income or non-low income to non-low income. It's always in relation to their academic peers, so it's always in relation to state data. And so when looking at any of these demographic factors, you can then think about it in terms of how does that compare to our district's overall student growth percentile, but also our state's overall student growth percentile, which for a lot of these is the 50th. And so as a parent of a variety of grades, I won't try and figure out which grades we sent, because not every fourth grade student this year wouldn't have a student growth percentile report because they only have one standardized test result to report. And so the only thing they can do is develop a fan based on statistics. And you can see here, I chose current 8th grade students purposely because they have a number of scores that you can see. And I chose this student specifically so that you could see a student that they're really kind of borderline. You can see in the 12-13 school year, they reached proficiency with a score of 405. This is now where the statistics come into play, because the fan at the end tells us, based on this pattern of scores, how likely is it that this student will be proficient next year. And if you think about the low, typical, and high growth percentiles, just to maintain proficiency, we know for this student, we're going to have to provide a high level of growth, which means just to maintain proficiency for this student, we're going to have to provide intensive instruction, because the fan tells us that we'll need a 67th percentile or above just to maintain a level 3. And so that's good information as a teacher to know about my students. Same student, but this is for reading. And you can see here how there's a little bit more variation in how this student scored, but you can see 2 of the growth percentiles are in the high range. This student scored a 398. And if we provide typical growth for the next year, this student will decline their overall score. So again, we're going to have to provide intensive instruction for this student to reach proficiency and maintain proficiency. I think it's equally important to think about our students that are showing high achievement. You can see this student scored 494, 508, 528, extremely high achievement scores. And while there's not a great variation in the scaled score, you can see that this student showed high growth. That's because when you're comparing high-achieving students to high-achieving students, the small, maybe bumps in scores are going to be significant. But what this also shows us is that if we're not careful with this student and we're not ensuring that this student has that rigorous curriculum, rigorous experience, that with low growth, they can go down to the level 3 proficiency level.
So what is determining the fan? I mean, it's a really cool graphic.
And so
valuable, but I don't understand where that fan fits in.
So the fan is based on statistics. And other students...
this student to... Oh, okay, so back to our... Yeah, the amoebas. So it's based on the student growth percentile predictions. But do we find this in the data?
So this isn't something that you would see, because this is an individual student report. This is something that a school has, and it's something that we would use. And I'm showing you just so you have a sense for kind of another way the statistics are used.
So are these already going out?
Yes.
Being generated?
Mm-hmm.
So these are actual student reports where we just took the names off and put student A and B. The state released publicly for the first time this year the student growth percentiles that are available publicly on the OSPI website, and gave districts the option essentially to provide the individual score reports for families, and we always provide individual student data when we have it. So we did provide these to families. The directors of school support did trainings for their principals on, you know, what this all means, and we've sent out the data.
So parents have this?
Well, you only get it, it's some. You only get it at grades. You have to have 3 years of MSP data, so it's
2 years.
I'm sorry.
So fifth grade
2.
students
Okay.
have it, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.
So then what do they expect?
You haven't received it yet? It should.
Pardon me?
Come soon.
I mean, that
If
really...
And so current 9th graders receive it for their 8th grade scores, current 10th graders receive it from their MSP to HSPE reading, but not for a 9th grade.
So this is newly developed from the state, I mean, within the past several years, and they're looking at this as part of the data required for the ESEA waiver, the Elementary Secondary Education Act waiver. Instead of AYP methodology, it's shifting to AMO, and then they're trying to figure out where does the use of SGP, student growth percentile data, fit into that whole accountability system.
And from my perspective, one of the things that's good about this in a very good way is that a kid who's a 4, you're still, or a 3 moving to a 4, you're still getting credit for growing that student. It's not just about hitting the floor, it's about raising kids towards the ceiling. So I'm impressed with that.
Well, it's also a way to say these are the resources we need, because if you line these up for all 24,000 of our students, that's a huge amount of resources that's being, as far as I'm concerned, the state's not needing.
Well, and I just have to tag on to Nancy's earlier comment, because as part of, this is one piece of data that can be looked at in setting student growth goals as part of the evaluation system moving forward. And teachers need time to understand this data and to plan with their teams, instruction and so forth, to address the needs of the students. And so without leap time for that, it's going to be incredibly challenging.
Well, and I also think that teachers and parents, particularly as we get into these older grade levels, need to understand is it's not just the school's responsibility, it is also the responsibility of the student. So you're putting the information in the students' hands, and the students need to also be focused on what does it take for them to achieve.
How much work it takes.
And moving on, with student B, this is their second set of scores in reading. And I selected these purposefully as well because of how the fan spreads out. Look at the typical band. It's a very small set of percentiles, even though that's the typical range, 34th to 66th percentile. But hitting that typical range is challenging because of the previous scores, the down-up that you see from 5th grade through 7th grade. And so thinking about this student, we would want to make sure that we are being very intentional about ensuring that we provide or ensure there's a higher level of a scaled score on the assessment, because if we don't, you can see how the low achievement band could put that student right back into the level 3 proficiency. Moving into our actual growth data at the middle level, I showed it to you visually previously, but here you can see that we have a 56 student growth percentile, a median student growth percentile for our middle schools in Lake Washington School District. The range of those student growth percentiles are 18, so it ranged from 50 to 68. 8 of our schools were in the 50s, and 3 of our schools were in the 60s. When looking at reading, we have a student growth percentile, a median student growth percentile of 54, but of interest, the range of 25, so schools scoring from the 45th to the 69th percentile, with 1 school in the 40s, 8 schools in the 50s, and 2 schools in the 60s.
Just a question on the math one. That's not including the EOCs. Is that just the MSP?
Correct.
Okay.
This is, yeah, typical standard math.
Okay. And if you take algebra in 7th or 8th grade, do you take the MSP as well?
You do.
Okay.
And so I wanted to take just look at a couple of our demographic factors in relation to our overall scores, and realizing that overall versus a demographic group, there's a little bit more to it, but they don't break it out quite like that, and I wasn't sure exactly how to break it out at this point. But when comparing our Hispanic Latino demographic group to our overall score, our Hispanic Latino group had a 54 median student growth percentile compared to our overall median student growth percentile of 56, which to me is interesting. It shows that both our demographic, Hispanic Latino, and our overall students are growing at about the same level. Now, this doesn't tell us about achievement, because this isn't about achievement. It's about, in relation to the students you're most similar to in performance, are you showing and demonstrating growth? When looking at reading.
John, and just one clarifying question to make sure. So on the, that means there's one school, correct?
Correct.
Where Hispanic students' SGP is in the 30s.
Correct.
And so that would, for example, we want to look at, you know, that school compared to other schools, correct?
Correct.
So these are schools in other, yeah.
And on that
And is that the goal to do? Will that be the process that's being utilized with this, is to analyze down to the school differentials and look through those? Such as the school with 30, or in the 30s for the the one school. The goal will be to go and look and see what's going on, what's the difference.
Correct.
What's the rationale? Okay.
And I would say, just if I can add on to that just real quick, I mean, I think at this point, we from sort of the central leadership team are trying to get smart about what does this tell us and how do we look at this, and get principals smart about how do they look at it and so forth. What we haven't done yet and need to do is to figure out how does this, but in the future, not for this year, but play into the SIP process. So we'll not only have progress data, AMOs, but we'll also have student growth percentile data. And so what is that, how do we incorporate that into the SIP process? So this year, I'm just sharing that tonight, because this year when you see the school SIPs, it's not going to have, they're not going to have any mention of student growth percentiles, and so this data is not going to be reflected in this year's SIPs.
And then looking at reading, we have a similar breakout with a median student growth percentile of 52 for our Hispanic Latino demographic group and 54 for our overall. I also thought it was of interest to look at low income versus our non-low income. And when looking at the median student growth percentiles for our non-low income students, it's in the 58th percentile. Again, with a range of 18. And the median student growth percentile for our low income students is 49. In reading, you'll see the breakout of 55 for our non-low income and 51 for our low income.
So something to just think about here is when you look at the overall data, we always see that achievement gap, you know, in our overall test scores. And this is showing somewhat, and, you know, I'm winging it off of looking at it for this point in time, are we getting enough growth even in our low income to ever close that achievement gap based on what this is showing between our low income and high income? I mean, it draws to question that growth component, and are we doing what we need to do with that population?
And so that kind of goes back to that idea of benchmarks and kind of if-then statements. If our low-income students continue to progress at the 49th percentile in student growth percentiles, will they reach the level of achievement that we want? And if I remember correctly, the 49th percentile doesn't reach that mark. And so
Right, and at the same time, I wouldn't want to see that difference between non-low income and low income. Ideally, that difference should be very minimal.
Absolutely.
And so, as that
Absolutely.
difference still exists, that's what we need to be addressing.
That's what's actually, I think, really positive about this data system is it gives us a different view. Even earlier tonight, we were talking about that on the MSP data, you know, we can't break out low income versus non-low income. And so some of those things they're doing here, they're taking it down to the student level and kind of slicing and dicing it in a different way that allows us to ask different questions and do analysis in a, I think, a positive way.
And just trying to think about some of the findings that we see with our middle school student growth percentile data, that Lake Washington demonstrates high achievement and better than average growth when compared to the state. That the general student population is demonstrating typical growth across our schools when thinking about low, typical, and high. Students are demonstrating similar levels of typical growth in both math and reading. There are similar growth percentiles for categories all students and Hispanic Latino. And there appears to be a large discrepancy between the demographic groups low income and non-low income, and specifically in math. So some of the conclusions, that our middle schools are providing good growth opportunities for all students, that we need to pay specific attention to the strategies required to support our students represented in the low-income demographic group, and that Lake Washington does not show significant gaps in growth, but the gaps that are present should provide cause for reflection. And as a next step, another way to possibly look at some of this data is to put together achievement, student growth percentiles, AMOs, and any other possible relevant factors to kind of gain a bigger picture of our students making progress and achievement.
I can save it to the very end as a sort of summary concept, so that's fine. Going on.
So I'm going to hand it back over to Matt.
This is some of our district to district comparison data as we provided for you before. This is our current 7th graders when we look at our surrounding districts. Pretty much on a par with Bellevue. Issaquah is slightly higher in reading, pretty close in math. Here's our special ed. Looking at that particular group in 7th grade, reading and math, looking at surrounding districts. My observation is that Bellevue seems to be doing something that's working for those students in a slightly stronger way in reading than we are.
Yeah.
And yet, when you look at math, we are on a par with North Shore and exceeding where Bellevue is, sort of the flip. Here's our 8th graders comparing to surrounding districts. This is our special ed in 8th grade. And this pattern is following suit again, or no, it's not. Actually, I was saying the Bellevue score in reading is lower than ours. It's interesting kind of change there for 8th.
They did get through 7th and then lost it.
And this is the ELL data.
I think, didn't we at one time when we were looking at the elementary, commented about this one with the ELL, and what are they doing differently?
And talking with our director who's working with ELL, she's saying to me she wants to get some data on what is Bellevue doing differently by talking with their director of ELL programs.
Yeah, and Issaquah too.
Similar to now, 9th grade, we look at all students. Again, we're pretty similar in reading, actually slightly higher than Bellevue, but similar to Issaquah. pretty close, similar to surrounding districts in math and science. Special ed. And then again, ELL.
Yeah.
Following that same pattern of what is it that's something intentional, that can't be accidental, there's something going on within Belgavia's programming that's causing such a discrepant change between the two comparisons. And then kind of concluding on what we see as sort of opportunities for improvements, some summary statements, and we're lining it up now to what our own strategic plan work is, and we said earlier how this work helps inform us both going forward, making revisions to our strategic plan, making refinements. We have new K-12 Common Core standards in math and English language arts. We spoke to with the new test and SBAC, Smarter Balance, will go into effect next year. We've been doing work around that, by the way, to kind of prepare for that, and have been for the last 3 years now, 2 years, getting preparation and getting in place. We have a new pre through 6th grade literacy curriculum, and for the group we've been looking at, we haven't said very much that the 6th grade has a new literacy curriculum that's aligned to Common Core. We anticipate seeing and we'll be developing work around interim assessments that are aligned to Common Core as part of SBAC. We've been doing work with middle school standards-based report card and potentially starting the research and development phase of a new math program in 6-8 is coming on, which would be a new aligned Common Core curriculum. Continuing in this same goal area, we continue to implement professional learning communities. I don't want to spend too much time anecdotally, but I was really intrigued listening to Craig, the principal from Twain, talk about the importance that you've pointed out a number of times tonight, and hearing him say, not as a plant, but how his teachers have shifted their focus in their grade level teams to what do we need to do as we look at data, how do I change my practice, the reflection that it takes to do truly the combination of professional learning communities and the response to intervention work that needs to happen. And that takes time, as you've been pointing out, that the legislature needs to recognize is needed for teachers. We know that we're doing some Quest improvement, as well as looking at OER, which is a whole new approach to our textbook adoption process, new in that it's looking at what is available to us through open educational resources that can be updated continuously rather than being every 10 years updating your curriculum. The data dashboard improvements we've been talking about tonight, both in our work session, what do we want to see, how do we get at that cohort data to see how do these students in Safety Net, for example, do over time and when they exited. Those are improvements we need to make to the dashboard so that that becomes more fruitful and purposeful for us. And that is where we're ending. So I'll turn it back to you and hear questions or comments.
Just want to also say thank you, Matt, for putting this together. Board members, any further comments or questions that you have?
I do have a question. With the SPARK, the Common Core state assessments that are coming out, will those be vertically aligned, or no, they'll be the same as MSP and HISP?
That I don't know.
Okay. I'm just curious as to how that will shift what the whole conversation was. And we've seen this achievement gap with free and reduced lunch, and you gave some of the outbreaks of the goals of what was going on. Knowing that this subgroup has this gap and has had it persistently for a period of time, are there any plans for anything specific in which to target that, especially at the middle school or high school level? I see the general concepts, and I know the response to intervention, I believe you said it was at one in middle school, I don't remember. But in looking at that data and knowing that component, my question is, how do you now utilize that to feed it into the actual planning that happens in the fall? And then as these SIFs are done, how does that come up to the district level? So at the board, we can understand that this is what the schools are doing, therefore this is what we should be seeing at the board level in regards to change that's occurring. I'm not getting that connection yet between those levels. So those are sort of my, when these gaps come up, what's the plan to take forward of how it'll be addressed? because I'd like the data to be a call to action.
Yeah, you know.
I've just heard the gap for a long time.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting about the low-income group is we've got really specific privacy requirements around personally identifying students who are receiving free and reduced lunch. There's like a very small list of people both at the district and at the school level who can access the list. So we don't program specifically, we don't say this is the group of students who are qualifying for free and reduced lunch, and here's the program for them. What we do is we say these are the students who aren't meeting standard, and here's how we program for them. Then we can look at that, and those students who aren't meeting standard, and see, you know, percentage-wise, how many of them are low income versus non-low income. So it's just, I think our focus is on serving the students who aren't meeting standard, and then how do we, through our foundation, through ALE connections, other things, go, what other needs do this particular group of students have? Because if you're coming to school hungry, or if you're coming to school without clothing, or if you're coming to school without a place to live, then chances of you being able to focus academically at school and achieve are lower. So we have some ways that we can try to provide for the poverty needs that a child has, and then we have ways of focusing on the academic needs of the students, whether they're receiving free and reduced lunch or not. So it's a little bit of a complicating factor. I don't know how else to say it. I think the connection between school SIPs and district strategic work is something that we've been trying to strengthen for the past couple of years. We have a strategic plan that says these are the areas that we're focusing on, and the structures that we put in place for SIP, it should be sort of an accordion kind of. How could I describe it maybe clearer? We look at the district-wide data, and we say, here's what we're seeing. We ask the schools to look at their school data, and then we ask directors of school support to look at the learning community data to say, because the other thing we have to make sure is we might need to might need to do program improvements like Matt described tonight, but those might be based on the data needed more in some schools versus others. Or there might be strategies that some schools are using that are really productive and promising that need to be shared across other schools. So I think we need to think about and take that comment back about how do we make that sort of connection more explicit between what's happening. I'll just use intervention programs as the example since that was our work session tonight. How is that connecting to what's happening at the school? And it should be a direct connection. But maybe there's a way where we can make that more explicit tie through the SIP documents or something. I mean, we could think about how to do that better.
But it's even how those intervention programs should be impacting at the district level. Meaning that the data that you would see there, how do those interventions get to that point so that you can see that progress is being made?
Right.
Okay.
And I think, I mean, I heard one of the questions come out in the work session tonight was, you know, so if you're going to, if we're planning for these improvements in intervention programs, what outcome are we expecting, right? So, you know, then it's, you know, maybe if we had that more clearly defined, then we could say, well, where is that outcome not happening and where is it happening? And then, you know, target resources appropriately, or I don't know. I have to think about it a little more, but I think that that's a good point about making those connections. I'm still noodling about the free and reduced lunch piece based on what I shared.
That's good. And the next piece then is, right, how does budget have to tie into that? And how do you have to do resources in which to do so, in which to have that impact?
Okay. Anybody else, any other comments? Otherwise, we'll move on to superintendent's report. Again, thank you, Matt.
Thanks both Matt and John.
And John. Sorry, John. I did not mean to forget you.
I wanted to share in superintendent's report a bit about the temporary boundary work that's occurring in the Redmond learning community, because I haven't had a chance really to talk about that publicly at a board meeting in superintendent's report. So it's interesting because Craig was here tonight during host school talking about the growth that they're seeing at Twain, and we're seeing growth, as we all know, all over the district, and specifically in the Redmond learning community, having some challenges based on that growth. We all know that we've got a bond coming up in February, in just 4 weeks, and the bond will fund 3 new elementary schools that we need to accommodate growth. Had our 2010 bond passed, we'd have 2 of those schools already. Since we don't, we are really struggling in the Redmond learning community specifically to figure out how are we going to house the students that we have in the system that are going to have in the next 2 years. Assuming the bond passes, we're going to open new schools. It's going to take a couple years to get those schools built. We still need to accommodate the students that we have in the short term. There's 2 schools specifically that are experiencing the most challenge. That's Rockwell and Einstein when we look 2 years out. And so this isn't new information to Einstein or Rockwell families, and we have had the opportunity November, December to go out to Einstein and have a parent meeting there, have a parent meeting at Rockwell to really show the data and show what the long-term growth projection is, the short-term growth projection, and share why we need some kind of short-term strategy to get us through for the next 2 years. We also are looking at MAN as a piece here, not because they are experiencing a challenge with their capacity, but they could potentially help serve some of the students in the learning community. So we've had a parent meeting at MAN as well, and we shared with parents potential short-term strategies that we think are viable to implement in the next couple of years, including conduct a temporary boundary adjustment to identify unoccupied housing developments currently in the Einstein and Rockwell attendance areas and adjust their attendance area to MAN in the short term. We would add portables to the MAN site to accommodate some of the additional students that would be going to MAN. Another strategy is to move the district program that's currently at Rockwell, the preschool program, to another site because that frees up a classroom for K-5. And then also another strategy would be to limit the sections of all-day kindergarten available at Einstein and Rockwell and create some opportunities for all-day kindergarten at MAN for Einstein and Rockwell families should the need be there. So we shared these potential strategies with families when we went out to the parent meetings, and we asked people to give their level of support for each strategy on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being low, 5 being high. The most support came for the temporary boundary adjustment in terms of an average rank of 4.3 out of 5 support. Moving the program from Rockwell received the next highest support with an average rank of 4.2, and limiting the sections of all-day K at Einstein and Rockwell and creating sections at MAN was given an average support rank of 3.6. So we took that data and decided that we needed to move forward with the temporary boundary adjustment. We need to move forward with moving the preschool program from Rockwell to another site, and if needed, also look at limiting sections of all-day K at Rockwell and Einstein and providing some additional options for all-day K at MAN. So all this has been shared with parents in all 3 schools, and in fact the temporary boundary committee has started their work, and USAW tonight has developed some scenarios that they are planning to share at a community open house on January 22nd. So invitations to that open house have been sent to Rockwell, Einstein, and MAN families, and we'll get some feedback on those scenarios and then I'll come back to you with a recommendation for board action on the temporary boundary implementation on January 27th. So not new information for you, but I thought it would be a good idea to share that publicly in tonight's meeting.
And that people who hadn't looked at their invitation yet now can put that on their calendar and make sure they attend. Anything else for SUP's report? That's it? Any legislative update other than today's session began? for 60 days.
And it will be short, hopefully.
Well, they said they might get out in less than 60 days this time because they don't have budget shortfall. That's what I heard today. Janine's looking skeptical. Me too. No, since they don't have a budget shortfall, this gives them all the more reason to find all these funny little bills that they want to put together, you know, to keep us all on our toes, because they can't just not do anything. Heaven forbid. Anything else from the board for either follow-up or future agenda items, debriefing, anything that we need or have comments on from anyone?
I just wanted to say, having dug into the student growth statistics, this is the first time I have ever read a manuscript by an educational researcher where the math is beyond me. I am very impressed. And I'm not kidding you, ever. So this guy is very smart, and what I follow is very interesting. But before we start criticizing specific buildings, I want to have some conversations with your team about some of the assumptions that he made.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Any other comments from the board? Just welcome Mark again. And before we adjourn, just a reminder, our next meeting is on Monday, January 27th, and we will begin at 5:30. If we have a board meeting, it will be a shorter board meeting that night with a work session immediately following. And it will be on professional growth and evaluation, long-term planning for professional learning, all the stuff that we just talked about, the importance of, that we need time for people. We also will be having a Saturday morning at 8:30 on February 1st, a half-day work session where we will be talking about policy governance, doing an orientation for our new board member, and we're in the process of planning that event at that day. Yes, 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 just kind of, yes, 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 yes. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, how about a second?
Seconded.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Oh, I just loved it.